Hello, my name is Luke, and welcome to another video in my coding questions series, a series in which I go through different coding questions of varying difficulties, mainly using Codewars and LeetCode. This question is an AQ question, which is the easiest type of questions in Codewars, and the title is Grasshopper Summation. Okay, so what is this question about? Well, let's read the description. Write a program that finds the summation of every number from 1 to num. The number will always be a positive integer greater than 0. Your function only needs to return the result. What is shown between the parentheses in the example below is how you reach that result, and it's not part of it. See the sample test. Okay, so why don't we take a look at these examples? So if you look at the first one, here's the input and output. This is what the result should be. The input is 2 and the output is 3. Now, why is it 3? Well, it's because they added 1 plus 2. So 2 is a total, to make 2, if you follow the order, it's 1, 0, 1, 2. So that's why it's asking you to add those numbers. It's asking to add the numbers that that number makes up. So for instance, a better example of that is this number 8. So what are the numbers that make up the number 8? Well, it shows it right here. It goes from 1 all the way up till 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it adds each individual number all together to getting this sum, which is 36. And that's what they want. They want you to give this total. Okay, so there are several different ways that you can do this. I'm just going to first do the more common method, which is to use a loop. Okay, so loops are a very useful tool in programming languages. It allows you to check on things, allows you to go through a bunch of different elements, and it's just a very effective tool. Okay, um, so here is the pseudocode. So first off, we want a holder variable. A holder variable is a place where you can store all of store your results, store your output. So in this, so for this 8, it would have been 36 would be what would be stored in this holder variable, right? So you want this to just store whatever you do, whatever actions results from using the loop. And then the second step is to actually implement the loop. So you would implement a for loop in this case. Now, the for loop is going to loop through the number. But the thing is, if we give this for loop just the number that's given in this parameter here, inside this parentheses, it's only going to give you the number 8. So this for loop, for it to be effective, we need to also implement another built-in method, which is range. Okay, we need to use range in the loop. The range is another great tool that gives you all of the numbers in order from the parameter that it's given. Okay, so what the loop will do is it'll go through each of those numbers, and as it goes through each of those numbers, it tells us, oh, you should probably implement an action. Okay, so it's always important to understand, and this is one of the things that I needed to point out to my past students, is that the loop in itself is not really doing anything. It is going through each of the numbers, but as it goes through the numbers, it doesn't do an action until we make it do an action. So if we just put in a loop and we just do a return, it's not going to give you anything unless you do something with that loop. Okay, so that's an important point to make. So we're using the range inside of the loop so that it gives you all of those numbers, and it can go through each individual number as it's shown here, each individual number. Um, and so what is the action that we want to do? Well, for this loop, we wanted to add all of them together, right? So that's the point that's making here. It's a summation. We want them to add them all together. And so how can we add them? Well, we can add them uh, using, so I figured the name of the variable should be total. So the holder variable over here, just, it could be anything, but I just thought total would made sense. So we would want it to add into that. We wanted it to add to that using the range, using the loop. As it goes through the loop, each element will be added to this variable. And I'll show you how this will work inside of the loop once we write it. Okay, so add to the total. Okay, and then the last thing that we need to do is just return the variable. Okay, return the holder variable. All right, so now we have our steps written in pseudocode. All we need to do is follow those steps, which is always a good idea to do so that you can keep track of the order in which you're going to go and work our way from there. Okay, so here is the first one. So the first step is to write the holder variable. The holder variable will be holding, starting off with a zero, starting off with the integer zero. We know that because this whole problem is just going to be on numbers only, and so that's why we're starting off with zero. If this was going to be a string, we would start off with an empty string like this with quotation marks. Okay, so we're starting off with this variable, and then we have our loop. Okay, so the loop will be a for loop in which it goes for I. I'm gonna work with I because traditionally it's the I, but it could literally be anything. It could have been X, it could have been Jake or something like that. Anything. In this case, the I usually represents index. For I in now we use the range as I mentioned in step 3. For I in um, num plus 1. Now, why is it num plus 1 and not just num? Well, the curious thing about the range is that whatever number you put into it is actually going to give you all the numbers that are less than that number. So say, for instance, we put in the number 8, it would actually give us all the numbers that are less than 8. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So um, that's why if I wanted the numbers 1 through 8, I would actually put the number 9. Now, we don't know which number it's going to get, right? That's the whole point of the function, is that it can take any parameter that it gives as long as it's a number, but we don't know what the number is. So a way around that is to just add 1 to it. Okay, so that's why it's num plus 1 here. Okay, so now you have your for loop. And now what is it going to do? Well, it's going to have the action that we wanted it to do, which is add to the total. How can we add to the total? Well, you can just use the variable name. So total equals total plus I. Now, why is it plus I? Well, everything here represents something. Okay, so the I here represents each number that it's going to go through in the loop. As I mentioned, the loop will go through all the numbers inside of the range that it's given. So for instance, if it was 8, it's going to go through all of these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So as it goes through, we want it to be added to the total in the variable. So right now, the variable is 0. So one way you could have represented it is like this, I plus 0, and the I as it goes. So say, for instance, the range, we start off with 1. It will be 1 plus 0, and then the total will go from being 0 to 1, right? And then as you move forward, that number will change, right? The I will change, the loop will continue on, so then it'll be 2. And this total is no longer this is no longer equal to 0, it's now equal to 1. So then it'll be 2 plus 1. So then the total is now, 2 plus 1 is 3. So then it'll be 3, and so on and so forth. So it'll just keep moving on. And it's just important to remember that when you look at this. And that's actually a big bulk of coding, is to just remember that all of the variables, they're all just referring to something. They're all referring to a different part and just trying to keep track of what you're referring to. And once you can do that, once you get used to that process, I really feel that you'll have a much better understanding of coding and have an easier time with it. Okay, so that's basically it in a nutshell. All you need to do after this is to just return it. Okay, so return the total, right? So the loop should run through all of it, and it'll add all of it. So why don't we test it? And there it goes. We're testing it and it works. Okay, so yeah, so this is the most common method of solving this problem. Well, I say common as in like this is the most programming way to answering this problem, but there are shorter ways to answering this problem. And I actually wanted to show you another method. Um, Another way to do this is to just actually write it out in a single line. And as coders, as programmers, we love to see if we can make our solution more efficient, and do it with less code. So one way you could do it is to use another built-in method known as sum, which is basically a method that adds everything together that's inside of it, and use the range as we started, starting it off at 1, and then doing num plus 1. So all this is saying inside of this range is this is the starting position, this is the ending position. That's all that's saying. So then you start off at 1 and then go to num plus 1. So then it's 1 through 9. So you're running through all of the numbers, and as you run through them, it gives you the sum of all of those numbers. So you add them all up. So this is just a shortcut way, a way of using the methods to solving this, which is, a very effective way. And as I just tested it, it works. It's an effective one line code method. Another way that you could have done it was to use pure math. You could have actually just done this using mathematical operations. If you just did the 1 plus num times num, and then you divide that by 2, right? This is another way that you could have done this. This is actually just a mathematical solution. So I'm not going to go deep into this, but yeah, this is actually one of the reasons why it's a good idea to improve in your mathematical skills, so that it can help you in the programming situation. So yeah, so these are 3 different methods that I wanted to show you. I hope they all made sense. And thank you for watching to the end of this video. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will respond. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.